Welcome to Folktales Africa. Please like, subscribe, and turn on the bell. It keeps this storytelling fire burning. Now, let's get into today's tale. The crystal chandeliers cast dancing shadows across the polished marble floor of Emerald Palace restaurant as chaos erupted in the elegant dining room. Customers gasped and pulled out their phones as security guards dragged the disabled man in torn clothes toward the exit. "Get this filthy beggar out of my establishment," screamed Chioma Okafor, the restaurant owner, her designer dress sparkling under the lights. "Look at him. He is contaminating my restaurant with this stench." The homeless man didn't resist. His weathered face remained calm despite the humiliation. His torn jacket hung loosely over his thin frame, and his shoes were held together with tape. But his eyes had something that made a few witnesses pause, a quiet dignity that seemed strangely out of place. "Please," he said softly, "I just asked for some leftover food. I haven't eaten in 3 days." Chioma's laugh was sharp and cruel. 3 days? Try 3 years in a gym and a job before coming to my restaurant. The wealthy patrons around her chuckled nervously. "This is Victoria Island, not some charity kitchen." As the guard shoved him toward the door, the homeless man's worn notebook fell from his pocket. Pages scattered across the marble floor. Pages filled with detailed notes, measurements, and official stamps that no ordinary beggar would process. But Chioma was too busy performing for her audience to notice. Let this be a lesson to anyone who thinks they can beg at Emerald Palace. We serve the elite here, not street rats. The homeless man was thrown onto the sidewalk, his dignity stripped away in front of dozens of recording phones. As he gathered his scattered papers with trembling hands, a small smile played at the corner of his mouth. "Ma'am," he called back to Chioma, who stood in the doorway basking in applause. "You might want to prepare for visitors tomorrow." Chioma scoffed. "The only visitors you'll get are from the psychiatric hospital." But this story started 3 months earlier with a phone call that would change everything. 3 months earlier, Dr. Samuel Ikechukwu sat in his pristine office at the Lagos State Ministry of Health, reviewing inspection reports from across the city. At 45, he was the youngest person to ever hold the position of Chief Health Inspector for Lagos State. His walls were lined with certificates, awards, and commendations from a career spent protecting public health. His secretary knocked and entered. "Sir, we have a situation. Anonymous complaints about Emerald Palace restaurants on Victoria Island. Customers reporting food poisoning, unsanitary conditions, and evidence of bribery to avoid proper inspections." Samuel frowned as he read the thick file. Emerald Palace was owned by Chioma Okafor, daughter of prominent politician Chief Okafor. The restaurant catered to Lagos elite, senators, business moguls, celebrities, and according to the reports, it was potentially poisoning them. "Sir, there is more," his secretary continued. "Our regular inspectors have tried to gain entry 5 times. Each time, Mrs. Okafor calls her father and we receive orders from above to postpone the inspection." Samuel's jaw tightened. He had seen this pattern before. Wealth and connections protecting corruption, while innocent people suffered. His phone buzzed with a text from his wife. "Samuel, your sister called. She has been hospitalized with severe food poisoning after dining at some upscale restaurant on the island. Doctors say several patients came in with similar symptoms this week." His hands clenched into fists. This was no longer just professional. It was personal. "Prepare an undercover operation," he told the secretary. "If they won't let the government in through the front door, then government will come through the back door." Meanwhile, across the city, Chioma Okafor stood in her restaurant surveying her kingdom. At 32, she had built Emerald Palace into Lagos' most exclusive dining destination, with reservations booked months in advance and a waiting list that included half of Nollywood. She was the undisputed queen of Lagos nightlife. But her success was built on cutting corners, bribing inspectors, and using her father's political influence to avoid consequences. In the kitchen, expired ingredients mixed with fresh ones. Surfaces went unclean for days. Staff worked without proper health screenings or training. Aduni, she called to her head chef. The health ministry sent another letter about an inspection. Handle it the usual way. Aduni, a tired woman in her 50s who had worked in restaurants for decades, shifted uncomfortably. Ma'am, maybe we should actually clean the kitchen this time. Some customers have been complaining about feeling sick. Customers complain about everything, Chioma snapped. They complain, but they still come back because we're exclusive. They pay for the prestige, not the food. Just make sure the inspector gets his usual envelope. But Aduni's conscience was troubled. She had seen too many shortcuts, too many violations. That morning, she had watched a busboy drop raw chicken on the floor and place it back on the prep counter. When she protested, she was told to mind her business. Ma'am, what if someone gets seriously sick? What if someone dies? Chioma's eyes flashed with anger. No one will die from a little stomach upset, and if they do, my father will undo it. Don't forget who pays your salary, Aduni. Question me again and you'll be cooking in a buka by tomorrow. That afternoon, Samuel began his transformation. He visited the Lagos State Rehabilitation Center and borrowed one clothes from the donation box. He studied surveillance photos of known beggars in Victoria Island, learning their mannerisms and patterns. He practiced hunching his shoulders, shuffling his feet, and speaking with the defeated tone of someone forgotten by society. His wife, Dr. Grace Ikechukwu, watched him prepare with growing concern. Samuel, this is too dangerous. What if they recognize you? What if something goes wrong? Grace, my sister almost died from their negligence. How many others have to suffer while Chioma Okafor hides behind her father's power? He kissed her forehead. Sometimes you have to become invisible to see the truth. His teenage daughter, Kemi, looked up from her homework. Daddy, why are you dressing like that? Someone knelt beside her chair. Sometimes, baby girl, people only show their true character when they think no one important is watching. I need to see who these people really are when they think a poor man can't fight back. Will you be safe? I'll be fine. And when this is over, a lot of people will be safer because bad people won't be able to hide anymore. The next morning, Samuel transformed completely. Gone was the confident government official in tailored suits. In his place stood Joseph Emeka, a homeless man with no family, no connections, and no power. Someone easily dismissed, easily ignored, and easily destroyed. He spent 2 weeks living on the streets around Victoria Island, learning the ecosystem of Lagos' forgotten people. He met genuine beggars who shared stories of loss, addiction, mental illness, and systematic abandonment. He learned which restaurants showed kindness to the homeless and which ones called security. And he heard whispers about Emerald Palace, the fancy restaurants where the owner would humiliate beggars for entertainment, where staff were forbidden from giving away even spoiled food, where human dignity was a luxury only money could buy. Samuel's first encounter with Emerald Palace happened on a rainy Thursday evening. He had been watching the restaurant for days. Noting the constant stream of luxury cars, the arrogant customers, and the staff's fearful demeanor, he approached the side entrance where staff took smoke breaks, hoping to strike up conversations and gather information. As he sat on the ground nearby, pretending to rest, he overheard two waiters talking. "Emeka, I'm telling you, we need to report what is happening in the kitchen," said the younger man, clearly new to the job. "Report to who?" Emeka laughed bitterly. "You think Madam Chioma cares? You think her father, the senator, cares? As long as the money keeps coming, they don't care if they poison half of Lagos." But the meat we served today was green under the surface, and the dairy products haven't been refrigerated properly in weeks. Someone is going to die, and we will all be accessories to murder. "Lower your voice," Emeka eased, looking around nervously. "You want to lose this job? You want to end up like Brother Joseph over there?" He gestured towards Samuel. "Keep your mouth shut and collect your salary. That's how you survive in this Lagos." Samuel filed this information mentally. The corruption went beyond shortcuts. It was willful endangerment. As the waiters went back inside, Samuel slowly stood and approached the back door. He knocked gently. "Excuse me," he called out when a young busboy appeared. "Please, I haven't eaten in 2 days. Do you have any leftover food you could spare?" The boy looked sympathetic but glanced nervously over his shoulder. "Uncle, I am sorry. Madam Chioma said anyone caught giving food to beggars will be fired immediately. She said it attracts more of them." "Even spoiled food that you are throwing away? Especially that. She said if word gets out that we give free food, beggars will camp outside the restaurant and scare away customers." Samuel nodded with understanding. "I see. Well, God bless you for being kind with your words at least." As he turned to leave, he heard Chioma's voice from inside. "Who are you talking to? I told you people, no beggars allowed near my restaurant. They contaminate the environment." The door slammed shut and Samuel heard the busboy being scolded harshly. Through the window, he watched Chioma gesticulating wildly, her face twisted with disgust as she lectured the young man. Samuel returned every few days, each time documenting different violations. He watched delivery trucks drop food directly onto dirty floors. He saw staff ignore basic hand washing protocols. He witnessed Chioma screaming at health inspectors who tried to enter, threatening to have their jobs terminated through her father's influence. On his third visit, he encountered Chioma directly for the first time. It was a Sunday afternoon and Samuel sat across the street observing the restaurant's lunch crowd. Expensive cars filled the parking lot. Well-dressed patrons laughed and posted photos in front of the elegant facade. Samuel noticed a small girl, about 8 years old, who had wandered away from her family's car. She was crying and looked lost. Without thinking, he approached her. "Little one, are you okay? Are you looking for your parents?" The girl nodded, tears streaming down her face. Samuel gently took her hand and helped her look around until they spotted her frantic parents emerging from the restaurant. "Mama, Papa," the girl cried, running toward them. The parents rushed over, and the mother immediately snatched her daughter away from Samuel as if he were diseased. "What were you doing with my child?" the father demanded aggressively. "Sir, she was lost and crying. I was just helping her find you." "Don't touch other people's children," the mother screamed. "Security! Security!" Within seconds, 3 security guards appeared, along with Chioma herself, drawn by the commotion. "What's this beggar doing harassing my customers?" Chioma demanded, her voice carrying across the parking lot. He was touching my daughter, the father accused. Samuel tried to explain, but Chioma cut him off. I don't care what your excuse is. You don't belong here. This is a respectable establishment for respectable people. She turned to her security guards. If I see this man anywhere in my restaurant again, call the police. File a report for attempted kidnapping. The false accusation hit Samuel like a physical blow. Around him, other customers nodded in approval, their faces showing disgust and fear as they looked at him. Ma'am, Samuel said quietly, I was only helping a lost child. I meant no harm. I don't care what you meant. People like you are always up to something criminal. Stay away from my restaurants, my customers and their children, or I'll have you arrested. As Samuel walked away, humiliated and angry, he heard Chioma addressing her customers. I am so sorry you had to witness that. This is exactly why we maintain strict security. We can't let just anyone approach our valued customers. The crowd applauded her, treating her like a hero who had saved them from danger. That night, Samuel sat in his study at home, still in character as Joseph Emeka, writing detailed notes about what he had witnessed. His wife found him there at 2 a.m. Samuel, you are pushing yourself too hard. This is affecting you mentally. He looked up, his eyes filled with a mixture of rage and sadness. Grace, do you know what the worst part is? It is not the health violations, though those are serious. It is how she looked at me, like I wasn't human, like I didn't deserve basic respect because of how I was dressed. Grace sat beside him. But you are not actually homeless. You can take off those clothes and return to your real life anytime. But the real Joseph Emekas of the world can't. They have to live with the dehumanization every day. And people like Chioma profit from a system that keeps them invisible. He turned back to his notes. She made a mistake today though. She escalated to false accusations and threats. That shows she is desperate and reckless. Desperate people make big mistakes. Samuel's breakthrough came when he befriended Aduni, the head chef, who had grown increasingly troubled by the restaurant's practices. She found him sitting outside a nearby shop and approached him hesitantly. You are the man from last week, aren't you? The one Madam Chioma accused. Samuel nodded carefully. Yes, ma'am. I was just trying to help a lost child. Aduni looked around nervously before sitting beside him. I know. I saw the whole thing from the kitchen window. The little girl was crying and scared, and you were being gentle with her. Madam Chioma lied. Why are you telling me this? Aduni sighed heavily. Because I am tired of keeping quiet while people get hurt. Do you know how many customers have gotten sick from our food in the past months? 17 that I know of, and those are just the ones who called to complain. Samuel felt his pulse quickening but maintained his character. That's terrible, ma'am. But why are you telling me? Because tomorrow, we are serving food that should have been thrown away 3 days ago. The fish has started turning and the dairy products smell sour. But Madam Chioma said throwing away food is waste and waste is money lost. She pulled out her phone and showed Samuel pictures she has secretly taken. Moldy bread being scraped clean and reused. Meat with green patches being seasoned heavily to hide the color. Milk that had clearly separated being mixed into sauces. Ma'am, this could kill someone, Samuel said, genuinely shocked by the extent of the violations. I know, I have tried to speak up, but she threatened to fire me and make sure I never work in Lagos again. My husband is sick and I have 3 children. I can't lose this job. Samuel felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. This was bigger than he had imagined. Ma'am, what if there was a way to stop this without you losing your job? What if someone with authority could see what you have seen? Aduni looked at him suspiciously. Uncle, you are a beggar. No offense, but who would listen to you? Samuel chose his words carefully. Sometimes, ma'am, people who seem powerless have connections you wouldn't expect. Would you be willing to help if I could guarantee your safety? After a long pause, Aduni nodded. If you can really stop this madness without destroying my family, I will help. But how? Leave that to me. Just document everything you can over the next few days. Take pictures, keep records, note dates and times, and when the time comes, be ready to tell the truth. As Aduni walked away, Samuel felt the final pieces of his plan falling into place. But first, he needed to force Chioma to reveal her true character in the most public way possible. Samuel spent the next week carefully orchestrating the perfect storm. Through his contacts at the Ministry of Health, he ensured that several prominent Lagos residents would be dining at Emerald Palace on a specific Friday evening, including a popular blogger, 2 Nollywood actresses, and a respected pastor who had a large social media following. He also arranged for his own backup team to be stationed nearby, disguised as customers and journalists, ready to document everything that would unfold. But first, he needed to create a situation that would expose Chioma's cruelty in the most dramatic way possible. Samuel arrived at Emerald Palace at exactly 7 p.m., when the restaurant will be at its busiest and most prestigious customers will be sitting. He had not eaten for 2 days, not as part of his act, but genuinely to make his desperation authentic. He stood outside the restaurant's main entrance, watching through the floor-to-ceiling windows as Lagos elites enjoyed their evening. The crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over tables laden with expensive meals. Laughter and conversation created a bubble of privilege that felt completely separate from the harsh reality of the street outside. Samuel approached the entrance slowly. The security guard immediately stepped forward. Oga, you cannot enter here. Please, sir, Samuel said, his voice weak with genuine hunger. I am not asking to sit down or disturb anyone. I just want to know if the kitchen has any leftover food they were going to throw away. I haven't eaten in 2 days. The guard looked uncomfortable but shook his head. I am sorry, uncle. Strict orders. No beggars allowed on the property. But I am not asking for money or to beg from customers. Just scraps that would be thrown away anyway. I cannot help you. Please leave before there is trouble. Samuel persisted, knowing he needed to create enough commotion to draw Chioma's attention. He sat down on the ground near the entrance and began calling out to customers as they walked in. Please, just some leftover food. I am very hungry. God will bless you. Within minutes, Chioma appeared at the entrance, her face flushed with anger. She was dressed in an elegant gold gown, clearly having been in the middle of hosting VIP guests. What is this nonsense? She demanded of her security. I thought I made it clear that beggars are not allowed near my restaurant. The lead security guard apologized profusely. Madam, we told him to leave, but he is being stubborn. Chioma marched outside, her heels clicking sharply on the pavement. By now, Customers inside were watching through the windows, and several people on the street had stopped to observe the confrontation. You, she pointed at Samuel. I remember you. I told you never to come back here. Samuel looked up at her with tired eyes. Ma, I am not causing trouble. I am just hungry. Very hungry. If you have any food that you were going to throw away. Throw away? Chioma's voice rose to a shriek. Do you know how much our food costs? We don't throw away food in this restaurant. Every grain of rice, every scrap of meat is accounted for. Samuel knew this was a lie. He had seen the waste himself, but he played along. Please, ma, I am begging you. Just something small. I haven't eaten since Wednesday. Good, Chioma shouted, loud enough for everyone to hear. Maybe if you stay hungry long enough, you will get motivated to find a job instead of begging from hardworking people. A small crowd had gathered, including customers coming out of the restaurant to see what the commotion was about. Samuel noticed the blogger he had arranged to be there, her phone already recording. Ma, Samuel said, his voice barely above a whisper. I am not a bad person. I just need help. Help? Chioma laughed harshly. You want help? Here is some help. Get off the street and get a job. Stop being a parasite on society. She turned to address the crowd that had gathered. Ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly what is wrong with this country. Instead of working, they beg. Instead of contributing, they drain resources from people who actually had value to society. The crowd murmured, some nodding in agreement, others looking uncomfortable with her harsh words. Samuel played his next card. Ma, I am not asking for charity. I can work. If you have any cleaning or washing I can do in exchange for a small plate of food. Work? Chioma's laughter became hysterical. Look at you. You are filthy. You smell. You probably have diseases. You want to contaminate my restaurant with your presence? She turned to her security guards. Get him away from here. If he comes back, call the police and have him arrested for trespassing and harassment. But Samuel wasn't finished. He had one more card to play. Ma, please, I have children who are hungry too. This was a complete lie, but he needed to see how far Chioma's cruelty would extend. Children. Chioma's eyes blazed with disgust. You brought children into this world when you can't even feed yourself? That is child abuse. Maybe I should call social services and have those children taken away from an unfit father. The crowd gasped. Even those who had been nodding along with her earlier rhetoric looked shocked by this escalation. Samuel had gotten what he needed. On camera, in front of multiple witnesses, Chioma had revealed herself to be completely without compassion or humanity. But she wasn't finished. Security, she called. I want this man physically removed from my property, and I want everyone to see what happens to people who try to bring down the quality of this establishment. 3 security guards surrounded Samuel. As they lifted him from the ground, his one notebook fell from his pocket, pages scattering across the pavement. What is this? Chioma demanded, snatching up some of the papers. Are you writing down information about my customers? Are you planning to rob them? Samuel's heart stopped. The notebook contained his official inspection notes, complete with government letterhead and his real credentials. But Chioma was too caught up in her performance to read carefully. She glanced at the papers dismissively. Look at this. He is keeping notes about my restaurant, probably planning some kind of scheme or robbery. She held up the papers to the crowd. This is why we can't allow people like this near respectable establishments. They are always planning something criminal. Samuel tried to reach for his notebook, but the security guards held him back. Those are just personal notes, he said desperately. Personal notes about my business, about my customers. Chioma ripped several pages in half and threw them in the air like confetti. This is what I think of your criminal plans. The crowd watched in stunned silence as she destroyed what appeared to be a homeless man's only possessions. Let this be a lesson to anyone who thinks they can target Emerald Palace for their criminal activities, she announced triumphantly. The security guards dragged Samuel toward the street. As they prepared to throw him onto the sidewalk, Samuel looked back at Chioma and spoke with quiet dignity. Ma'am, you might want to prepare for visitors tomorrow. Chioma laughed mockingly. The only visitors you will get are from the psychiatric hospital. Now, get out of my sight and never come back. As Samuel was thrown onto the sidewalk, the crowd began to disperse, but several people continued recording on their phones. The damage was done. Chioma had revealed her true character in the most public way possible, but as Samuel gathered the scattered remains of his notebook, he smiled slightly. The papers she had torn up were actually decoys, old inspection reports from other restaurants that he had brought specifically for this purpose. His real evidence was safely stored elsewhere. The trap was set. Now came the reckoning. Samuel arrived at the Ministry of Health at dawn, still wearing his beggar's clothes, but now carrying a briefing case filled with evidence. His secretary was shocked to see him in such condition. Sir, what happened to you? Are you all right? I'm perfect, Samuel replied, his voice carrying a steel edge that hadn't been there before. Schedule an emergency inspection of Emerald Palace restaurant for 11 a.m. today. Full team, health inspectors, food safety specialists, and media relations. Sir, you know they'll just call Chief Okafor and have it postponed again. Samuel's smile was cold and satisfied. Not this time. This time we are going in with cameras, warrants, and evidence of criminal negligence. And this time, Chief Okafor's influence won't save his daughter. At 10 a.m., Samuel showered, shaved, and put on his best suit, a sharp navy blue ensemble that transformed him completely from the broken man who had been humiliated the night before. He looked in the mirror and barely recognized himself. His wife watched him prepare with concern. Samuel, you look different. This has changed you. It has, he admitted. I have seen what people are capable of when they think no one is watching. I have seen the casual cruelty that privilege breeds, and I have seen how society allows it to continue. He straightened his tie and picked up his official badge. But today, society fights back. At 10:45 a.m., a convoy of government vehicles pulled up outside Emerald Palace restaurant. Samuel stepped out of the lead car, flanked by 6 health inspectors, 2 police officers, and a media liaison who immediately began recording everything for the official record. Inside the restaurant, Chioma was having lunch with a group of socialite friends, regaling them with the story of how she had handled the disgusting beggar the night before. You should have seen him, she laughed, gesturing dramatically with her wine glass, sitting there like a sick dog, begging for scraps. I told him exactly what I thought of people like that. Our friends giggled and applauded her strength in dealing with the homeless problem. Then our head security rushed over, his face pale with panic. Madam, we have a situation. Government officials are outside with cameras and warrants. They say they are here for a full health inspection. Chioma's laughter died instantly. What? Call my father immediately. This is harassment. Ma'am, I already tried. His phone is going straight to voicemail. Through the restaurant's large windows, Chioma could see the government team setting up equipment and preparing to enter. Her heart raced as she tried to think of a way to stall or escape. Then the doors opened and Samuel walked in. For a moment, Chioma didn't recognize him. The transformation was so complete that the confident, well-dressed government official bore no resemblance to the broken beggar she had humiliated less than 24 hours earlier. Samuel approached her table with measured steps, his official badge clearly visible on his lapel. "Good morning," he said politely. "I am Dr. Samuel Ikechukwu, Chief Health Inspector for Lagos State. We are here to conduct a comprehensive inspection of this establishment." Chioma stared at him, confusion evident on her face. Something about his voice seemed familiar, but she couldn't place it. "I'm sorry, but this is highly irregular," she stammered. "You can't just show up without notice. I need to contact my lawyer." "Actually, we can," Samuel replied calmly, "especially when we have evidence of immediate health hazards and public safety violations." He gestured to his team. "Please, begin the inspection. I want everything documented. Food storage, preparation areas, staff hygiene protocols, temperature controls, and waste disposal procedures." As the inspector sprayed throughout the restaurant, Samuel turned back to Chioma. Her friends had gone silent, sensing the gravity of the situation. "Mrs. Okafor, I believe we met yesterday evening," Samuel said quietly. Chioma's eyes narrowed as she studied his face more carefully. "Yesterday? I don't know what you are talking about." "Really? You don't remember our conversation outside your restaurant? About hunger, about dignity, about what kind of help people deserve?" The color slowly drained from Chioma's face as recognition began to dawn. "No," she whispered. "That's impossible." Samuel smiled, the same quiet smile he had worn as he gathered the scattered papers from the sidewalk the night before. "You told me to prepare for visitors today," he said. "Well, here we are." Chioma's legs nearly gave out as the full realization hit her. The homeless beggar she had humiliated, the man she had called filthy and diseased, the person she had accused of criminal intent, was the chief health inspector for the entire state. You are him," she stammered. "But that is impossible. I looked like someone you felt comfortable treating as less than human." Samuel finished. "Someone whose dignity you could strip away for entertainment. Someone whose suffering you could mock without consequences." Around them, other customers and staff had stopped eating and walking to watch the confrontation unfold. Samuel continued in his calm professional voice. "For the past 3 weeks, I've been conducting an undercover investigation of this establishment. What I found was not just health violations that could kill people, but a pattern of systemic cruelty and dehumanization that reveals the true character of his owner." One of the health inspectors approached with a tablet full of photos. "Sir, you need to see this. The kitchen conditions are worse than we imagined." Samuel took the tablet and showed the screen to Chioma. Expired meats being served to customers. Dairy products that have been unrefrigerated for days. Moldy bread being scraped clean and reused. Cross-contamination between raw and cooked foods. Insects in the storage areas. Chioma's friends gasped and pushed their plates away in disgust. But more importantly, Samuel continued, his voice growing stronger. I documented something that no health code can address: the complete absence of human compassion, the willingness to let people suffer for entertainment, the belief that wealth gives you the right to treat others as subhuman. He turned to address the growing crowd of customers and staff who had gathered to watch. Ladies and gentlemen, last night, this woman destroyed what she thought were the personal belongings of a hungry homeless man. She called him diseased, threatened to have his children taken away, and had him physically assaulted and humiliated, all for the crime of asking for leftover food. Murmurs of shock and disapproval rippled through the crowd. She did this in front of multiple witnesses, recording devices and children. She did it with pride, as if cruelty were something to be celebrated. Chioma tried to speak, but Samuel held up his hand. But here is what she didn't know. That homeless man was me, a government official conducting an investigation, someone with the power to hold her accountable for every violation, every lie, every act of callousness. The crowd erupted in gasps and excited whispers. Several people pulled out their phones to record this stunning revelation. Samuel's voice carried clearly across the restaurant. Mrs. Chioma Okafor, by the authority vested in me by Lagos State, I am hereby ordering the immediate closure of Emerald Palace Restaurant, pending a full investigation into health code violations, food safety negligence, and willful endangerment of public health. Two police officers stepped forward and began placing official closure notices on the restaurant's doors and windows. Furthermore, Samuel continued, criminal charges will be filed for serving contaminated food to the public, bribing government officials to avoid inspections, and operating a food service establishment without proper health permits. Chioma finally found her voice, but it came out as a desperate shriek. You can't do this. My father is Chief Okafor. He's a senator. He has connections throughout the government. Samuel's smile was cold but satisfied. Your father's influence is exactly why we conducted an undercover operation. Political connections cannot protect you from documented evidence of criminal negligence. He gestured to the camera crew that had been recording everything, and they certainly cannot protect you from the court of public opinion, where your treatment of that homeless beggar is about to become very public knowledge. As if on cue, Samuel's media liaison stepped forward. Mrs. Okafor, would you like to comment on the viral video from last night showing you destroying the personal belongings of a man you believed to be homeless, or your statement about having hungry children taken away from their parents? Chioma's world was crumbling around her. The restaurants that represented her success, her status, her power over others, was being dismantled in front of her eyes by the very person she had treated as worthless. This is entrapment, she screamed. This is illegal. You can't trick people into revealing their true character. Samuel's response was quiet but devastating. Mrs. Okafor, I didn't trick you into anything. I simply gave you the opportunity to show who you really are when you thought there would be no consequences. The cruelty, the arrogance, the complete lack of empathy, That was all you. As the health inspectors continued their work, each discovery was more damaging than the last. In the walk-in refrigerator, they found meat that had been expired for over a week. In the prep area, they documented cross-contamination between raw poultry and vegetables. The ice machine hadn't been cleaned in months, and the water filtration system was completely clogged. But the most damning evidence came from Aduni, the head chef, who had been waiting for this moment. Sir, she approached Samuel with a thick folder of photographs and documentation. I have been keeping records of everything for the past month, just as you asked. Chioma's eyes widened in horror as she realized her own staff had been working against her. Aduni, what are you doing? I trusted you. The older woman turned to face her former boss with years of suppressed anger finally surfacing. You trusted me to keep quiet while people got sick. You trusted me to cover up your crimes while families suffered. That trust was broken long ago. Samuel reviewed Adoni's evidence. Photographs of spoiled ingredients being used, temperature logs showing dangerous storage conditions, and a detailed timeline of customer complaints that had been ignored or covered up. Miss Okafor, Samuel announced loud enough for everyone to hear. Based on this evidence, you will face additional charges of conspiracy to conceal evidence and reckless endangerment of public safety. Chioma's socialite friends began backing away from her, clearly wanting to distance themselves from the scandal. The restaurant staff watched in fascination as their imperious boss was finally held accountable. Please, Chioma begged, her arrogance finally cracking into desperation. I can fix this. I can renovate the kitchen, hire new staff, follow all the regulations. Just give me another chance. Samuel's expression remained unmoved. Miss Okafor, yesterday evening you had a chance to show basic human decency to someone you believed was powerless. Instead, you chose cruelty. You chose to humiliate, to dehumanize, and to destroy. He gestured toward the crowd of customers and staff who were recording every moment. You didn't just violate health codes. You violated the basic principles of human dignity, and that, more than any contaminated food, reveals the true danger you represent to this community. The police officers stepped forward with handcuffs. Ms. Chioma Okafor, you are under arrest for operating an unsafe food establishment, bribery of public officials, and reckless endangerment. As the handcuffs clicked into place, Chioma made one final desperate plea. You don't understand. I was protecting my business. I was protecting jobs. Everything I did was for success. Samuel's response was quiet but devastating. Success built on the suffering of others isn't success. It is exploitation. And exploitation, no matter how profitable, always comes with a price. 1 week later, the story of the undercover health inspector had spread across Lagos like wildfire. Videos of Chioma's cruel treatment of the homeless beggar and the dramatic revelation of Samuel's true identity had been shared thousands of times on social media. Samuel returned to the office to find it flooded with messages of support from across Nigeria. But he also found something else: a stack of reports about similar situations throughout Lagos, where the wealthy and powerful have been using their influence to avoid accountability while ordinary citizens suffered. His secretary handed him a newspaper with the headline, Emerald Palace Exposed, the restaurant that fed Lagos elite contaminated food while owner mocked the hungry. Sir, there is more, she said, We have received over 50 complaints about other establishments owned by politically connected families. People are no longer afraid to speak up. Someone smiled for the first time in weeks. The operation had achieved something beyond shutting down one corrupt restaurant. It had broken the culture of silence that protected systemic abuse. Meanwhile, in a small apartment across town, Aduni was cooking for her family in her own clean kitchen for the first time in months. Samuel had personally ensured she found new employment at a reputable restaurant where food safety was taken seriously. Mama, our youngest son asked, "Why are you so happy today?" Aduni smiled as she stirred the pot of fresh, properly stored ingredients. "Because today, darling, the truth finally won over, and that doesn't happen very often." 2 weeks later, the courthouse was packed as Chioma's trial began. The evidence was overwhelming. Contaminated food samples, bribed officials willing to testify, and dozens of customers who had fallen ill. But the moment that sealed her fate wasn't any of the technical violations. It was the video footage of her destroying what she believed were a homeless man's only possessions, played in front of a jury that included working-class Lagosians who understood what it meant to struggle. Samuel took the stand and explained his investigation methodology. "Your Honor, undercover operations are sometimes necessary when corruptions run so deep that normal inspections become impossible. In this case, Ms. Okafor's political connections had made her believe she was untouchable." The defense attorney tried to argue entrapment, but the judge was unimpressed. "Counselor, Dr. Ikechukwu did not entrap your client into being cruel. He simply created circumstances where her true character could be observed. The cruelty, the lack of empathy, the willingness to harm others for profit, those were choices she made freely." When Chioma finally took the stand in her own defense, her testimony only made things worse. "I was just trying to maintain standards," she insisted. "Allowing beggars near the restaurant would have lowered the quality of the dining experience for paying customers." The prosecutor seized on this. "Ms. Okafor, are you saying that maintaining your standards justified serving contaminated food to those same paying customers? That's not, the kitchen issues were separate from, were they? Because according to your own head chef's testimony, you knew about the health violations and chose to continue operating anyway. You prioritized profits over people's lives, just as you prioritized image over basic human decency." The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Guilty on all charges. Chioma was sentenced to 3 years in prison, 5 years of probation, and lifetime ban from operating any food service establishment. Her father, Chief Okafor, was also investigated for his role in obstructing health inspections, though his political connections ultimately protected him from serious consequences. 6 months later, Samuel stood in the same spot where he had been humiliated as Joseph Emeka, but now it looked completely different. The Emerald Palace building had been converted into a community health center that provided free medical care to the underserved populations of Lagos. A small plaque by the entrance read, "In memory of all who suffer in silence when power protects corruption over people." His wife, Grace, joined him on the sidewalk. "Any regrets about going through all of this?" Samuel watched as a group of formerly homeless individuals received medical treatment inside the building where they once would have been chased away. None, he said firmly. Sometimes the only way to expose darkness is to experience it yourself. Sometimes the only way to understand injustice is to feel it in your bones. A young reporter approached them for an interview. Dr. Ikechukwu, what would you say to other officials who might be considering similar undercover operations? Samuel thought for a moment. I would say that power without empathy is tyranny, and sometimes, to truly understand the people you serve, you have to see the world through their eyes, even when it is painful. He looked up at the community health center, where people who had once been invisible to society were now receiving dignity and care. But I would also say that justice delayed is not justice denied. As long as good people are willing to fight for it, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice as long as we are willing to bend it ourselves. 1 year later, the story of Samuel's undercover operation had inspired similar investigations across Nigeria. Corrupt officials who had previously felt untouchable found themselves facing scrutiny from their own colleagues who had been inspired by Samuel's example. The Emerald Palace test became a social media phenomenon where people would observe how businesses and individuals treated those they perceive as powerless, understanding that character revealed in such moments was character revealed truly. Samuel received a commendation letter from the Lagos State Governor for his innovative approach to combating corruption, but he kept the award in his office drawer. The real reward was the dozens of restaurants that had voluntarily improved their practices rather than risk their own undercover exposure. Chioma served her full sentence and was released with no fanfare. She worked quietly at a small food truck, finally learning what it meant to work honestly for modest wages. Some said she was a changed person. Others believed she simply learned to hide her true nature better. But perhaps the most important change was in the countless individuals who watched the video of her humiliating a homeless beggar and asked themselves, how do I treat people when I think no one important is watching? Samuel returned to his regular duties as chief health inspector, but he never forgot the lessons learned during those 3 weeks as Joseph Emeka. He kept the torn clothes in his office closet, a reminder that dignity should never depend on appearance and justice should never depend on connections. And sometimes, late at night, when reviewing inspection reports, he would remember the words he spoke to Chioma during that final confrontation. I didn't trick you into anything. I simply gave you the opportunity to show who you really are when you thought there would be no consequences. Because in the end, that's what true character is. Who we are when we think no one is watching, when we believe there will be no consequences, when we have power over those who cannot fight back. And in Lagos, in Nigeria, and in art around the world, people began to understand that the measure of a society is not how it treats its most powerful citizens, but how it protects its most vulnerable ones. This has been a Raw Tales Africa presentation. Remember to like, subscribe, and share if this story moved you. Most importantly, remember that every person you encounter deserves dignity, regardless of their circumstances. Until next time, keep your heart open and your character strong.